Welcome back to another League Two roundup, and I have to say that I'm recording this introduction after recording the roundup. That's because the introduction before had mentioned spoke about the Gillingham manager situation. Finished recording, and then in that time, Gillingham had already appointed John Coleman as their new manager. So a little bit of instant reaction to that to start this episode. It's an episode which is heavily impacted by snow. Just the 8 games that we've spoken about in today's roundup. You've got that to look forward to. 4 games were postponed as a result of the weather, and one of them was Chesterfield against Gillingham. Now, the timing of the sacking of Mark Bonner was very interesting, and it related to the postponement. He would have been the manager heading into today's game. The decision was made this afternoon following the end, what would have been the end of the game. It didn't actually happen. But if Coleman's been lined up, ready to come in, it does beg the question, kind of what they were kind of thinking, allowing Bonner to manage, the final game against Chesterfield. Of course, it never ended up happening, and it was all hypothetical. But I do wonder what would have happened had Gillingham gone there and won. Would he have kept his job? Would Coleman have been kept waiting? Who knows? But certainly something interesting to talk about, as is the appointment of John Coleman. In the last 25 years, he spent roughly around 23 of them managing Accrington Stanley. He's had stints managing in Ireland, and he managed Rochdale as well, amongst a few other sides in the very short 2-year period, kind of in between lengthy spells at Accrington. He was always going to come back into management, that much was clear. Did I expect it to be as far south as Gillingham? I certainly did not. I didn't anticipate that would be his next job, but it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. He's done a very good job before on a much lower budget. Would he have been the manager I picked for Gillingham in terms of who I would predict to go in there? No. Probably because of the location, but also in terms of what they're looking for in a manager. They've gone for a manager that's won promotion from this league before. They've got another one in Coleman. They've got one that's probably a little bit more of a long-term manager that you have, one that's used to managing with, I guess, lower expectations, but lower budget, overperforming. The expectations are going to be high, not this season, but next season. I have no doubt that they're going to go on a really good run, though, under Coleman. It seems to happen with Gillingham every year. They appoint a new manager, they go on a decent run, and then you get really positive about them coming into the new season. And that's probably what we'll do about Gillingham now. They'll have a good new manager bounce. It'll be really interesting to see how this one plays out. But, I just wanted to sort of record that little bit of introduction. But now we'll kind of carry on with the roundup. As it was happening. But the Gillingham chat. Let me know your thoughts below, Gills fans, if you are watching, and let me know what you think of that appointment. And without further ado, let's get on with the rest of the roundup. We've kind of dealt with the postponed games now. Let's get straight into the action. We start at Meadow Lane for Notts County against Swindon. Notts finished the weekend in 6th. Were up into the automatics before other games were played on Saturday and, of course, Sunday as well. A really good result for Notts. A very professional performance. A really good way to bounce back after a disappointing home defeat against Walsall, which sounds crazy to say, given where Walsall are in the league, but on the balance of play, Notts had really dominated the first half and had let it slip in the second half. It was once again another first half domination that saw Notts pick up all 3 points this time, though, as they saw through. Second half, not quite as eventful, but a David McGoldrick brace. He continues to age like fine wine, 37 years old and still playing a lot of games. 10 goals for the season now in 21 appearances. Really impressive from Didsey. Sam Austin getting a lot of plaudits as well for his versatility. He's played over 100 games for Notts now. I do wonder where he will end up in terms of how many games. I think he could definitely reach 200. There's only a couple more seasons for him to still be at the club for that to happen. Swindon, it's the kind of game you go into that doesn't damage them too much. Given other results, and we're going to come on to that, it's a bad day for them because they end up in 22nd, the closest team to the drop, having played a game more as well. However, I think going away to Meadow Lane, given the style of the side, it probably wasn't likely to be any different than that. You can see they've rotated a bit, made a triple change at half-time to try and shake things up, but also probably to manage minutes as well. Glatzel and Cox there, 2 very good high-level players, but whose fitness still needs managing. They made way. Kilkenny is a good player as well. So they've got some ability in this side. I do think, though, that they probably would have expected to pick up 0 points from that one. The search for a Grimsby draw goes on. Grimsby have played 25 games this season. They've won 12, they've lost 12, they've drawn just 1. We speak about it every time. It's amazing that they still can't find a draw, and they probably would have taken that in this game. Bradford lift themselves up to just outside the playoffs, and a little spoiler for where you can see they're just behind Doncaster. You go back to the last video, Doncaster are in the top 3. That's how tight League 2 is at the moment. But Bradford, great result for them. Back to winning ways, and a good chance to sort of build something. They leapfrog Grimsby, and I say it every time, but I think Grimsby will start to drop down the table. Bradford found the net 3 times, despite being without their talisman, Andy Cook. And they're going to have to rely on players like Alex Patterson, who popped up with a goal. He scored on the opening day. He's only got 3 goals to his name. He hasn't had the consistent minutes. If you look at his time at Harrogate, he got a lot of goals because he played quite a lot of games as well. He is capable of chipping in and propping up with some good numbers from midfield. So players like Patterson are going to be crucial for them going forwards. But a really good result for them. Disappointing for Grimsby. That does mean they've lost 2 games on the spin. And it is that inconsistency. They win a lot of games, but they lose a lot as well. And they turn some of those losses into draws if they want to be one of the better sides. For example, they've won more games than pretty much all the teams in the playoffs, bar Walsall. They've won the exact same amount as Salford, as Wimbledon. And yet you look at the amount of games they've drawn and / lost, and it's double the amount Salford had. So that tells you a bit of a story there. We move on to Barrow against Harrogate. And we're going to talk about Barrow and Harrogate and Colchester and Accrington. We'll talk about them separately, but they do kind of intertwine quite a lot. They're both 2-0 results. They're both away from home. And they're both sides who are down near the bottom. We'll start with Harrogate. They're up to 21st. It's a really, really good result for them. It's a poor result for Barrow. I would perhaps suggest maybe it puts a little bit of pressure on Stephen Clements because they're not outside of being dragged into it. They're 8 points clear. But that is not massive in League 2. We can see how things can swing, and this is a really poor result for them. Carl Cameron made his debut, but came off after 30 minutes, an injury. I think it's a shoulder or something like that, reportedly. And as suspected, that is the system I was anticipating them to play. Cameron, Canavan, and Vassell as the back 3. I think it will work really well for them, but they've got to hope that he comes back to full fitness. But it's a blow for Stephen Clements and his team. But Harrogate, Bryn Morris making his debut, a winning debut. Josh March gets another goal. He's not been in incredible form this season, but he's got 2 in his last 3. He's only played 14 games this season. He's got 4 goals, which for a team that have only scored 21, to have only played a fraction of their games and be such a proportion of their goals is pretty impressive. They keep him fit. They could do some good things this season as well. It's a really good result for them. A clean sheet as well, which, on the balance of play, once again, James Belshaw making some good saves, but Anthony O'Connor getting an assist as well. They've got some really good experience in this side, and I do think that they could pull themselves out of danger, but they need to keep this up. It's about being consistent, but that's a really good result for them. Similarly, Accrington, they rise up to 19th in the table. Not the way that Danny Cowley would have wanted to mark just over a year in the job. I believe it was a year and 1 day, or it was a year to the date, something around then, being in the job. They're doing a good job, the Cowleys, but this is a poor result, and it's Sean Whalley again with the brace. We talk about this man every single time we talk about Accrington. 10 goal contributions in 18 games is really strong anyway. When you factor in he's playing for a team who are struggling, and he's 37, Sean Whalley has been absolutely brilliant. He was the player I picked as my standout player in my season preview. And yeah, I am glad that I did so because he's had a fantastic time of it as Accrington's talisman this season. A great result for them. A good run of form they're entering into here. Back-to-back wins. They've got Liverpool in the Cup next. That is going to be obviously a bit of a write-off in terms of keeping that winning run going. And they've got some tough games coming up. So it was important that they got points on the board. Colchester, I think that might finish their season off. That seems ridiculous to say in January. I know. I don't see them being dragged into it. I think they've got a good coach and they're too good to really get dragged into it. But I do think that a couple of episodes ago, we spoke about them as being dark horses, and all they need to do is go on a run to reach the playoffs. I think there's a lot between them and the playoffs now. Not just in terms of points, in 13, they can make that up. We saw Doncaster do a bigger sort of gap made up last season. I just think these kind of results and performances are not that other side that would make that run. So I am going to say that Colchester, probably looking forward to next season to really build, but we'll be hoping to gain some momentum in this season. Port Vale travel to Doncaster. This is probably the game of the weekend to talk about in terms of significance. A lot of it here, it was a top of the table clash. Port Vale went 2-0 up, and yes, Doncaster did pay them back, but they held out for all 3 points. A much needed win for Darren Moore and his Port Vale side. We've got to go back all the way to the 16th of November for their last win in the league, and even back to October for their last win. Before that, they travelled away to a team that were above them before the start of the day, against a team that had been doing pretty well of late as well. A good side. There's a reason Doncaster are right up there. And they managed to get themselves in a way when they're back to winning games by 1 goal away from home. It's what they've done really well this season. Can they get back into that run of form? Because they've got the quality players to do it. They've got the manager to do it. It just felt like they were a little bit out of sorts. So that is a huge result for them. Pulls them back into that conversation. They're up to 4th. That was the weird thing about Port Vale, was that there was a lot of discontent, and understandably so, because the run of form was so bad, as we've just covered. But they were in a really good position in the league. A position that a lot of people would swap, and all it takes is one win, and all of a sudden they're back right in the mix because they had such a good start. So if they can keep it up now, they're going to be in a really good position. Doncaster is a really poor result for them. I wouldn't lose too much heart, but they're just so inconsistent. They're a really good side, but look at that run. It tells you everything you need to know. Win, loss, win, loss, draw, win, loss. It's just so up in the air. They need a little bit of consistency. FA Cup doesn't really help, I'll be honest with that. Then they'll have Gillingham, probably a new manager bounce to deal with. You look probably at Harrogate at the next game, you really think, yeah, we can get a bit of a run together. But then they've got tough games coming up. So with Doncaster, it's about finding that consistency. It's weird to say that about them because last season, they ended the season such a good run. We know they can do it, but they've got to do it again this season. MK Dons, not sure what's kind of going on there. I wouldn't say they're falling apart under Scott Lindsay whatsoever. He's too good of a coach for me to say that. But if you look at that run since the 14th of December, 6 games in the league, 4 defeats, just 1 win, 1 draw. It feels like MK Dons, we should have been speaking about them in this playoff conversation now. Let's say they'd won 2 of those games, they'd be on 40 points. Let's say they won 3 of those games, they'd be second in the league. And you probably look at Newport, Gillingham, definitely as games they probably should have won given where they are on the table. And Salford and Notts County, fair enough, are right up there, but at home against both of them, perhaps you're expecting a little bit more than a loss, especially a loss without scoring a goal. So it's a disappointing for MK Dons. Not sure what to really say about them, other than I do think it'll turn. They're probably going to invest in January. The squad is so strong, as we keep saying every single time, but you look at the team, it's so good. And they've got a great gaffer in the dugout as well. I just think that the bench is looking a little bit light. They've got youngsters on there. Maybe they need a little bit of time, but they've had some tough games. They've got Carlisle next, and they've got Walsall, which is really hard. But, and then you've got Wimbledon not so far on the horizon. But you have got a couple of winnable games in January. Some new faces in the door. Let's see what happens for MK Dons. Salford, though, let's wax lyrical about them a little bit. We've spoken about their run of form recently. This man's been credited as man of the match. 5 saves and a clean sheet. Matty Young continues to impress. Look at his stats radar there. Unbelievable. He's played 9 games for Salford. And apparently he played some early in the season. But this run he's currently on is 9 games in a row, as you can see, because he was on the bench before that. And so from the 30th of November onwards, he's played 9 games and kept 8 clean sheets. Just an incredible run for Matty Young. Continues to be, to me, he's one of the best young goalkeepers in the country. He's capped at youth level for England. He's trained with some very good clubs before this season at Salford. I know of a few clubs he was in at training last season, helping them out. Because of his age, he couldn't go on a loan, I believe, in the EFL as a goalkeeper, something like that. Hence why he was training with clubs. He was on loan at Darlington, had a really good time there, and there's no coincidence that since he's come to the side, Salford have really improved. Can't lay it all at him though. Carl Robinson and the rest of the squad deserve a lot of credit. I think a midfield that's got Salma Ashley and Tyrese Forner in is going to do really, really well. You look at some of the other players in that team, Kevin Burko, Hajim Noga, Adelakan, Stockton. There's so much quality in there. It's very experienced back three. It's played at a much higher level, and they continue to rise up the table. They're now third in the league. A great result, this one. Look at their run, and that win away at MK and the win at home to Notts, to me, are the two that really impress. Accrington, Barrow, Morecambe, Harrogate. Harrogate, again, you expect a good side to win. Maybe not win them all and also not concede a single goal in doing so, but still, as one-off games, you probably favour Salford. But Notts and MK Dons, they're the wins that really say to me, okay, this Salford side, they could be a real problem in this division. And look at the next three games. Ignore the Man City Cup game. Again, FA Cup not helping teams. Obviously, fantastic, by the way. I'm not saying it's not helping a club. Of course it is, but I'm talking about their run of form. It's brilliant for the club and the resources it'll bring in. But Fleetwood at home, Cheltenham away, they've beaten in this run, and Newport at home. Take out the Walsall game, you've got Bromley at home and then Tranmere at home. So if you take out the Walsall game, you've got probably, 6 games, 5 of them they could win very feasibly. So yeah, Salford got a real chance to push on now. They have a really nice run. Fixtures falling at a really nice time for them, and they're on a great run of form. We end the Saturday games with one more 1-0 game to talk about. It's Tranmere against Carlisle. This is, I said the game of the weekend to talk about was Port Vale Doncaster. That's at the top end of the table. At the bottom of the table, this is the game of the weekend. And a massive must-win game, we said, for Tranmere and for Nigel Adkins. And won it, they did. Super important for Nigel Adkins to get this win. Tranmere, let's go down to the bottom of the table here, but Tranmere lift themselves up to 20th. And look at the run of form they were on. Okay, they beat Harrogate, but terrible run of form. Dragged right into it. Lost to Morecambe, who were below them in the table. Before this game, the only other team below them was Carlisle, I believe. Or they had one other team, but one of the few teams that was below them was Carlisle. And, they went and they beat them. Carlisle aside as well, by the way, who, yes, they'd lost to Crewe, but they'd been winning up until the 93rd minute. They'd beaten Accrington, so they'd had a little bit of momentum. But it's pretty damning, I would say, for Carlisle that in that run of 4 games, Morecambe, Accrington, Crewe and Tranmere. Crewe you can take out of it because they're right up there, they're second now. But they were winning until the 93rd minute. And then you've got the Tranmere and Morecambe, who are right down there. To only have 3 points to show from a possible 12 is not good enough for a team that wants to stay up. They have invested already. They've signed players. They've signed Callum Whelan now as well. But do worry for them. Tranmere, still worried about them. Next 2 games, Walsall away, Wimbledon away. They've then got a pretty favourable run, actually. But you could possibly be looking at them back down in 22nd by the time they play that favourable run. I don't think they'll drop into the bottom 2, and that's what these teams have got to do. They've got a little bit of a cushion now above Morecambe. They need to try and pull away from them a little bit. And Tranmere, fair play to them, huge result at home. Had to win the game, and exactly what they did. We finish off then with Crewe against Bromley. Bromley, we're getting all the plaudits in the week, rightly so, for really overperforming as a newly promoted side. They are now down in 12th. They're still top half. I think they would have taken that after 24 games. And they look like they're not going to go down this season. Michael Cheek, once again, on the score sheet. He's inevitable. 13 goals this season in League Two. Absolutely brilliant from him. But that's probably where the positives end for Bromley. I'm not going to go too hard on them in this game. They did go down to 10 very late on, so you can't even use that really as an excuse. I'm not going to go in too hard on them because they've done really well this season, and you're not going to win every game or avoid defeat in every game. It does brings to an end a very good run, which their last loss in the league was all the way back in October. It's unfortunate, however, and they've got another FA Cup game. Good for them as well, by the way. However, let's be positive about Crewe. Let's give them the credit. Bromley won't lose too much sleep over this one. It's a heavy defeat, yes, but it's away against second in the league, so they're not going to lose too much sleep over that, I don't think. They'll be back. They'll be absolutely fine. Crewe, a lot of credit's given to Walsall and to Matt Sadler, and rightly so. Don't get me wrong, absolutely massive. I've made quite a few videos on it. But another young manager in this division who I think deserves heaps of praise is this man, Lee Bell. Just 41 years of age, came through Crewe's youth system of coaching, and my word is he's showing himself to be just a brilliant tactician. He's using his resources so well. You saw Lewis Billington there on the bench getting 2 assists, came off the bench very early because of an injury. He's rotating, he's using all his bench, using all his squad. The amount of homegrown players in this squad is, in the side and off the bench, etc. Really so impressive. It's the Crewe way. And they win yet again, and it moves them into second place. And for a side that were the beaten playoff finalists that can often have a hangover, and yes, they did have one at the start of the season, didn't have a great start, but my word, they bounced back, and they're now in second, heading into the second half of the season. Wimbledon are right behind them. If Wimbledon win their game in hand, yes, they go above them, but that'll still be top 3, and I think they'd still take a top 3 finish this season. Promotion's a real possibility. I'm not saying they're going to finish top 3. I think they'll finish in the playoffs. I think they've got good squad depth, despite the fact that a lot of it's made up of youngsters. They're all players that are getting exposure at a good level. And I think they've got a manager who is too tactically adept not to finish within those playoffs. I think he's shown adaptability throughout his career. And again, once again this season, to really get the best out of this side. And yeah, really impressed with Crewe. And yeah, the second, what a way to end the weekend for them. The only Sunday game. And that brings us to an end of this roundup. A heavily impacted roundup due to snow, weather conditions. Can't be helped. But I hope you guys have still enjoyed it. A little bit of chat about managers. A little bit of chat about where teams could finish this season. If you have enjoyed it, please do consider subscribing. We're on the way to 900 subscribers now, which is crazy for me to even be saying that. It would mean the world to me if you could subscribe. If you could like the video, that would be massively appreciated as well. That really does helps get more eyeballs on the video, which is ultimately what helps the channel grow and helps me hopefully produce even more content. If you could comment as well, if you have enjoyed it, do please let me know in the comments. I do read them all. I really appreciate all the comments I'm getting. They are, I had a few saying, hope you're going to keep the videos up, and I was anyway, but the comments make me even more inclined to do so. And thank you to you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.